Good evening. I would like to call the Planning Board meeting session here at 6 p.m. on the 26th of November to session in order. We may begin with a roll call to establish quorum. It looks like all the board members are here except for Board Member Lee, Board Member Williams, and Board Member Bagley. I'm James Moore, the chairman of the Town of Clayton Planning Board. The Planning Board is composed of volunteer members of the public appointed by the Clayton Town Council and is responsible for providing recommendations on key amendments to the zoning and code of ordinances, including text amendments, rezoning, and conditional zoning districts. Any decision made here tonight is a recommendation for the Town Council and will ultimately be decided by that body. While we welcome public involvement and discourse, please wait until invited to speak by the chair. Prior to addressing the board, speakers are asked to provide their full name and address. If allowed, speakers will be allowed a maximum time of 3 minutes and may be asked to stop if time goes over. May we stand now for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. The next item on the agenda is any adjustments of the agenda. Are there any adjustments to the agenda that is needed? Next item is approval of the minutes. The October minutes are delayed into the December's Planning Board meeting. The next item is item 4. Which is 2022-195-CZM, Benson Road Conditional Rezoning with Master Plan, which is continued from the October 2023 meeting deliberations. Presenter, Bruce Venable from staff. We'll now hear from Mr. Venable.
Good evening, board. Like you said, this is a continuance of a meeting you held back on the 25th of September. I'm just going to highlight some key aspects that have been revised by the applicant today and presented to you. Originally, the applicant came in for this conditional zoning of 146 acres just outside of the town's jurisdiction. They were proposing 457 total units that included single-family detached and single-family attached townhomes as well. Today, they come before you with that number reduced to 406. Their density when they originally came in was 3.2 units per acre. Today, they come before you at 2.78. Here is a graphic that was provided by the applicant showing the changes that they've made as far as the reduction in townhomes. Originally, they were proposing 207 attached townhome units, which made up approximately 45% of their overall development. They've reduced that number down to 91 units, which is below the 25% threshold that we require in low-density areas for attached dwelling units. Here again, you can see that they've reduced it from the 3.12 units per acre to the 2.7. And if we look at the images here, which the applicant will also point out later, you can see the light blue there is the area that was going to be the proposed townhome area. You can see on the right-hand image in the new plan that they've significantly reduced that and added more single-family detached units available there. Again, so since they decreased the townhomes from 207 to 91, that means they also have increased the single-family detached from 250 to 315. That's just called out here for you as well. In addition to that, we have a table here showing the old and versus the new proposed lot standards here. In addition to reducing the number of townhomes, the applicant has also revised the lot minimum requirements for their single-family detached lots. They are now offering 3 different sizes. They are offering a 6,000 square foot lots with 52 width along the frontage, 7,000 square footage lots with 62 feet width, and then 8,000 square foot lots with a 72 foot width. The townhome size has not been adjusted. We were not provided with any updates to the trip generation that would occur from this, but with the reduction in single-family detached, we do expect this number to go down. Perhaps the applicant will be able to provide you with more information on that. This is the standard stuff that is required in our conditional zonings. We've gone over this in the previous meeting. It is available to you in your packet as well. We can go over further if you have any questions. I just want to highlight that number 8 has been adjusted to show that this the lot dimensions must meet these requirements, the 6,000 square feet, 52 width lots, 62 width lots, and 72 foot lots with 8,000 square feet. Standard items there. We did want to address, we provided you with an inconsistency statement last time. There were 4 items. Number 1 was that the development is located outside the town's planning jurisdiction, is not included in the 2045 comprehensive growth plan or future land use map. We find that this remains inconsistent, and we just wanted to bring that to your attention. The second item was that the proposed density of the conditional zoning district was inconsistent with the future land use map designation of low density residential, and we found that the density was too high. They've come back and they've reduced that down to below 3, which is what our requirement is in the future land use map for low density residential. So this is now consistent with our future plans, even though this is currently outside of our jurisdiction. Number 3 was the conditional zoning district is inconsistent with the comprehensive growth plan by having over 25% single family attached townhome units. Again, the applicant has made adjustments to that to bring that below the 25%. And so we've now marked this as consistent with town plans. Finally, number 4, the proposed district is inconsistent with approval criteria number 2, the suitability of the subject property for the permitted use by the current for proposed conditional district. We believe that due to the surrounding zoning districts not permitting a project of such density, we still feel that this project remains inconsistent with the neighboring projects and neighborhoods around. So at this time, you've been given a new motion sheet with 4 options for you. At this time, town staff is recommending denial of this project due to these inconsistencies. Planning Director Conrad Meadow was happy to explain further kind of the reasoning behind that if you have any questions.
Does any member of the board has any questions for staff or the planning director?
Good evening, Chair, members of the Planning Board. My name is Conrad Olmedo, Planning Director, and I have the honor of this being my first meeting. I'm very excited about this. Before you, staff has prepared this consistency statements sheet that makes it a little easier for you all to make a motion. You'll notice that there are 4 motions. The motion that staff is recommending is in bold and in red. That is just staff's recommendation. The board may choose to select a different motion or select the one that staff's provided. The 4 motions basically are saying approval consistent with the land use plan, approval inconsistent with the land use plan, denial consistent with the land use plan, or denial inconsistent with the land use plan. We hope that this tool helps you all make a motion for recommendation to council.
Any questions for the planning director? Yes, Board Member Applewhite, and then Board Member Powers.
Good evening. Can you talk further about number 4 on the list that we just saw where staff recommended denial based on the surrounding land use densities?
So the basic analysis was that the lots around the immediate adjacent property were about 1 acre in size, and the size of the lots that are being proposed are a little bit, they're much less than that in size. And so staff was doing its analysis of that and decided to make a recommendation that the surrounding immediate land uses, even though if you look at the aerial of this area, you can see some subdivisions of smaller lot sizes. Staff felt that this particular item was a little inconsistent with the immediate surrounding areas.
Just to add on to that, we looked at the current zoning in Johnston County, which is the agricultural residential, which has a much lower density per acre amount. And then additionally, when trying to compare that With our own future land use map, it's difficult since it's outside our jurisdiction to associate which would go best with it. The closest we could consider would either be the the residential low density or the agricultural residential in our own future land use, which was also below what the currently proposed numbers.
Mr. Powers?
Yes, sir. Probably a more simple question than needs to be asked, but if this area is outside of the town's jurisdiction, why is the town's planning department and us looking into it?
Very good question. So this project is outside of the town's corporate limits and the current ETJ, extraterritorial jurisdiction. So the intent for this project is to have a rezoning as a recommendation for you all to then take to town council, at which point town council will then be asked whether or not to annex this property into the town's will be a satellite annexation. So while the property currently is outside of the town's jurisdiction, the planning department has taken this item before you as a rezoning to get your recommendation. The applicants would like to have these two requests be concurrently considered before town council. So there might be entertainment about, annexing the property before rezoning is done, but at this moment, the applicants would like to proceed forward with the rezoning request, which is before you tonight. You won't be seeing the annexation. That will go straight to town council. But town council will then be having to act on the annexation request, followed by this pretty immediate following rezoning request.
Yeah.
Is that the intent of the applicant then, if the rezoning does not get approved, they would then withdraw their request, I'm assuming, to be annexed into the town?
I'm not sure to that answer. That you'd have to ask the applicants that question.
I have a question, just a fairness question, making sure that we're looking at apples to apples and oranges to oranges. Since we're talking about the ETJ, and I know this question has come up within the city limits, when you said that the surrounding properties were an acre or more in the ETJ and the applicant, if I'm not mistaken, the applicant these properties will be on sewer, right? If I'm not mistaken, the applicants, this development will be on sewer. Okay.
Yeah, I'm getting confirmation.
And I noticed even within the town of Clayton, there have been properties that are an acre or more, and I live in a subdivision where the properties are acre or more that are on sewer. And this same issue came up with properties that were adjacent, that were less than a half an acre, quarter of an acre, that were adjacent properties. And I know neighborhoods had that same fight. I want to make sure we're consistent that these properties are on sewer, and the properties that are acre or more that are surrounding, are they also on sewer? Are we comparing apples to apples, or are they on septic?
If I can, so responding to the question as to the.
I just want to make sure when we're looking at acre properties, and when you're saying that they're not consistent with the surrounding properties, then making sure that we're not just looking at an acre property, acre and a half property surrounding, that if we're going to use that as a metric, that the surrounding properties are also on either Johnson County or municipal sewer, and not you're using that as a metric, and one property is on septic and one property, smaller lots, are on municipal or county sewer. I just wanted to make sure that if we're going to use that as an argument, that we're consistent in how the land is being utilized,
So
the wastewater.
In terms of consistency, I'm not relying on sewer or you septic versus sewer at this time. It's mainly the lot size is what's being considered in terms of looking at what would be allowed with the current Johnson County zoning with the adjacent properties in the area. So whether or not they're on septic or sewer is a question I don't have an answer to. I know that this project is going to be requesting to be on sewer. So there will be, I think, a pump station installed. The applicant might be able to speak more in the details about what infrastructure they'll be providing to this property and maybe what lines they're going to be tapping into. So hopefully that, the idea is not to, I'm not looking at it from an analysis of they're on septic and sewer. Typically, it's more about lot size and density versus availability or connection to an existing utility or a new utility coming in.
Thank you. Any other questions for the staff? All right, thank you. We're now here from the applicant. We're now here from the applicant. We're now here from the applicant. We're now here from the applicant.
I'm having a really hard time hearing you. Understand? So
All right.
be done with this. Can't hear. Yes.
You don't have mic, you have a microphone out there.
I just gotta turn the volume up in the building.
He may be stand back.
Yeah, sir. You also have to stand near the mic also, stand at the mic. Okay. Please talk
I
from the
am
mic.
Bob Spence. I'm an attorney from Smithfield, North Carolina, and I wanted to do an opening for the applicant's presentation. The applicant is presenting this to be both an annexation and a planning application virtually simultaneously because there have been changes in planning staff in Clayton, and that was what was originally recommended. This application has been about a year in the process. And they discussed it and tried to be as cooperative as possible. This is conditional zoning. If this is in the county, it's going to be conditional zoning. And if the one looks at this area, they will look at it. This is an area where 3 towns are converging. Okay, there will be territorial fights between the 3 towns because they're towns and they are converging close to this area. Wilson Mills is converging, Archer Lodge is converging, and Clayton is converging. And some of them are fairly aggressive. You should know that if you know the history of Clayton and some of these municipalities. What we're trying to do is to make an application that fits for the day's world and the future world, not the 1982 world, okay? Now, there is, as Chairman mentioned, the fact that there are some older subdivisions around this particular property. Here, you see it, then you can hear it, right, wherever you tell me. Okay? Now, here is a map showing some of those subdivisions. And what we're talking about is we're talking about our property right here, okay, off the News River, sort of southeast of Clayton. However, it is right across from Tuscany, not adjacent to it, but it is across from Tuscany. Here's us, and here's Tuscany. And as these properties develop, there's Tuscany. That is a 2009 development. Look at the developments beside it.
Excuse me, sir. Could you just step back just a little bit with your map, and that way I think you'll capture the microphone more.
Thank you. I'll work at it. Okay. So you've got Tuscany right here, right to the north, due north of this property. It's not adjacent to it. It's across the river and not adjacent, but that is a full developed subdivision that Norman Thompson did. Most of y'all know. Around the subdivision, you have the Knolls of the Neuse to the east, which was developed in 2006, but you have Hidden Valley, which was, a subdivision coming back from 1982 when Lewis Wilson developed it. As was mentioned, it had septic tanks and double wide. It was a nice subdivision for its time and for its place and for the fact that Johnson County had lost population every decade for 100 years. We're in a different world than in 1982 with Hidden Valley. So even though that's adjacent, that shouldn't be considered it. We have Glen Laurel, which started in 93, a very nice subdivision, designed in 1993 initially, and with much more compact lots. We have Windsor Green, designed almost 20 years ago in 1997. If you look at Clayton does have townhome lots. If we have townhome lots, we can obviously allow younger people who are getting out of school to get a starter home. And if you want to see the News and Observer article today on the News and Observer, it is talking about without the townhomes, frankly, college-educated people making over $100,000 a year can't buy a starter home. There are some townhomes. We've greatly reduced the number, and we put them interior to the subdivision. But that kind of detail they will talk about. So what we're trying to do is to do that. We're asking you to look at the planning for Clayton based on the future and what the growth will be as these towns merge, not based on what happened in 1982 and not looking at adjacent lots in 1982, because your purpose as a planning department is to devise planning that's consistent with the interest of the town, not some arbitrary and capricious standard based on 1982, which I think would probably be a legal violation. Now, look at the basic locations. Tried to do as best as I can with that thing. That's all right. The first subdivision here, you go back to here is Clayton. Inside of Clayton, Ross Landing, a fairly substantial townhome development. What is the square footage on the recorded plats? This is a copy of the recorded plat. It is 0.041 acres for these townhomes in Clayton. Okay. We're not asking you to have all townhomes. We're not asking you to have a full townhome subdivision as this Clayton subdivision is. We're asking for bigger lots for the townhomes, as Pam will go over. We're asking for it to be protected on all sides by single-family residential, but we're asking you not for a 1982 world, but for a 2025 going to 2030 world as it moves ahead. It's what planning departments are supposed to do, not look back at what the square footage was in 1982. I think that is so arbitrary as to have legal problems. Now, if you look at another subdivision here, we are now looking at Village Walk Drive. And again, you've got lots there at 4,620 feet, square feet. You've got smaller lots, which we can, I've got here is again Cobblestone Village. Cobblestone Village has got comparable lots. Cobblestone Village is not that far from here, but we're basically jumping from what I was showing you, which are comparable lots in Tuscany. And then across from Tuscany, again, it's clear adjacent to Tuscany, same developer. County subdivision. It's not illegal in the county in AR. If this application comes in the county, it's going to be what? It's going to be a conditional zoning because they've eliminated almost everything else. So conditional zoning is going to have the same negotiations here, and they're going to be, the next development is going to be like the county did for those two subdivisions. So you're going to be Tuscany, not very far from this property, across the river, a couple of lots away. Reasonably modern subdivision, which is what we're trying to do, not adjacent property developed in 2006 or 1982. Here's another tract, and again, this is the vineyards at Tuscany, and you will see that these vineyards at Tuscany, basically got a lot with 7,200 square feet, 7,100 square feet, and 7,700 square feet. It varies. This is the lots that should be looked at as what the growth of this area is going to be. Recent subdivisions, not something in 1982. That's what's being quoted to you for an inconsistency statement. That is illogical. I don't think all of y'all have had instructions in planning. It is not what we ask you to do. We could have gone to other venues to annex. If we voluntarily annex, this is one of the best things that can happen for Clayton in that area, because you will have more forefront. Well, you will be in Clayton unlike a lot of these people. Clayton will be there, and if you don't annex, you may never get there because it'll be blocked by another subdivision in another area. We would like to be in Clayton so you can have municipal services.
Excuse me, no outbursts, please. Continue to outburst. We will not allow public comments tonight. Thank you.
Not my first radio. Thank you very much. So I would let Pam get into the central conditions of it. What I wanted to do was to basically say planning is for an overall plan. And frankly, the comprehensive plan here did not take into full effect the fact that this is going to be a high growth area. You would have never thought that in 1990 or 2000, but it has. But all three municipalities are moving right at it, and it's an easy access to 42. So it will develop that way. And will greatly improve the transportation for Vincent Drive in that area and the intersections away from this property. We will improve with the transportation plan, which we'll present you later. So it's going to be a good transportation plan. It's going to improve the driving on there. It's going to have lots that are a reasonable size in comparison to what has already been approved by the county. And it's going to have townhomes that are substantially bigger than what you or the town has already approved in Clayton. And we have cut the number of those townhomes so they're protected from adjacent properties. And then Pam will give us the details on all that.
Good evening, members of Planning Board. Pam Porter with TMTLA Associates. Thank you to staff for the overview of our development. Here with me tonight is Bill Harrell with Hopper Communities, Pat Barbeau with Timmons Group, and Caroline Cheeves with DRMP, and of course, Bob Spence, who you just heard from. So we were before you 2 months ago, and we got a lot of comments from you guys as well as the community. We took a step back. We made some changes. Bob's already discussed some of those, so I will try not to harp too much on some of the points he's already made. So this is the vicinity map, the same one that we had in our last presentation. I did update the neighborhood outreach and planning board meetings to include also the meeting that we had in September, which really also felt like a community meeting like we would have before we submit. As Bob mentioned and as staff mentioned, we have made some changes to our proposal. So we now have a maximum density of 2.78 dwelling units per acre, which is in line with the low density residential land use designation. We also have made a reduction in our number of units. We now have 406 total, when we have a reduction in the townhomes as well, which brings us to 23%, which is lower than the 25% per the code. This was in the presentation by staff. This is just a side-by-side comparison of where we were and where we are now. Most of the changes have taken place in the area that's designated in the dashed circle. As you can see, a significant reduction in the townhomes. We still have townhomes, but they are much better insulated by the existing single family, or the proposed single family we're showing. And we've also included some of our larger lots adjacent to the Hidden Valley neighborhood, where before we had townhomes. And just as with the previous layout, we're honoring the existing environmental features by developing around the existing streams and floodplains and wetlands that occur on this site. This context map shows our site as well as some of the adjacent neighborhoods. And I also included some of the industry that is either existing or with the proposed expansions. And we wanted to include this because our development will support the existing and proposed industrial and pharmaceutical uses that are called out on here. And Bob mentioned this in his presentation. This just shows another map showing that although adjacent to us is a neighborhood that has large lots and they are on septic. That's why the lots are as big as they are. Large lots have to support septic and smaller lots can't support a septic system. But if you zoom out just a little bit further, there are several neighborhoods that have either densities or lot sizes that are very similar to what we are proposing. So just a couple, we've got Flowers Plantation, which have single family and townhomes, and I believe there's also apartments. They have lots less than 5,000 square feet. Tuscany has single family and townhomes, smaller lots, 6,900 square feet. River Muse, which is recently approved, they have, they're at 3 units an acre, and they have 42-foot wide single family detached lots. Our minimum is 52. Summerlin has a density of 2.69 units an acre with 6,500 lots. Chandler's Ridge has 8,750 square foot lots. Summer Glen, 6,500 square foot lots with a 2.66 units per acre density. And Gordon Park, which has 2.9 dwelling units an acre with 8,100 square foot lots. And this helps to illustrate that although immediately adjacent to our property, there is no density like what we are proposing, we do feel that we are in the spirit of the code and the land use map with our proposal. So that ties to the inconsistency number 4 that was talked about earlier. We feel that although technically inconsistent, we are in the spirit of consistency if you just zoom out a little bit further and see what else is around our proposed development. This is the same slide as before. This is just an illustration of what the houses could look like. There's no builder that's involved yet, but we just want to give you guys an idea of what the houses could look like in terms of materials and style. I'm not going to read all these, but just again, we did reduce our density, maximum 2.78 dwelling units per acre. And we did tie some lot sizes to our lot widths. So the minimum lot size for a 52-foot wide lot will be 6,000 square feet. The minimum lot size for a 62-foot wide lot will be 7,000 square feet. And for our 72-foot wide lot, we're committing to a minimum of 8,000 square feet. And these are all minimums. They may be larger depending on how the lots lay out when it's fully engineered, but those are minimums that we are committing to. And before I hand this over to Caroline to talk about the traffic-related things, I do want to touch a couple points. There's a need for housing. This was discussed at our last meeting in September. There's been a need for housing for a while. Comp Plan Policy LU 3.1 encourages a range of housing types, and we're providing that, and staff acknowledged that in the staff report. There are pump station upgrades that are tied to this project. If this project doesn't move forward, then the pump station won't be upgraded until another development comes along that can support the cost of the pump station upgrades. The path to this is not large lots and large homes. It is density such as what we are proposing. And I just spoke about inconsistency number 4, but with regard to inconsistency number 1, we are asking for annexation, and that's not something that as a board you vote on, but we are asking for annexation. The intention is for this to be brought into the town limits. So we're not proposing all of this in the county. We're hoping that the annexation will be approved and then we will be in the town of Clayton. And my last point before I hand it over to Caroline, she'll elaborate more about this in her talking points, but I do want to remind you all that NCDOT has approved our TIA and the roadway improvements. This is important to highlight because at the last meeting, somebody from the community who works at DOT spoke against our project. Not only do we have frontage improvements, we also have a fairly substantial off-site improvement as well. If NCDOT did not think we were doing enough road improvements, they wouldn't have signed off on our project. So I just wanted to make a note of that NCDOT, they have reviewed this thoroughly many times, and they're agreeing with what we're proposing for the roadway improvements. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Caroline.
Hello. Good evening. Caroline Sheaves with Ramey Kemp and Associates / DRMP. I am a professional engineer and licensed in the state of North Carolina, and I prepared this traffic impact analysis. At the last meeting, I explained what a traffic impact analysis is to you all. I'd be happy to answer any more questions, but the main thing that I would like to go over with you is we prepared some visualizations of the traffic improvements. I know it's hard to visualize things just reading turn lanes. And I do want to point out that these improvements would be constructed prior to the recordation of the first final plat, which means that before any of the homes are occupied with people who are generating the traffic, these improvements would be out here on the roads. Just want to make that clear. So this is that site driveway 1. As you can see, we have a little legend in the bottom right showing you where that is on the site plan. This is across the street from Windsor Green. This development would be installing a left turn lane into the new site driveway, so that would allow the left turning vehicles to get out of the way of the through traffic. And just to show you the amount of pavement that would be going out here, the amount of roadway improvements. So all the new things that would be touching would be in orange, I'm sorry, yellow is the added pavement that would be doing. So it is symmetrical widening, so there would be widening on both sides of the road, as well as the new site driveway. And then orange is the existing pavements. There would be striping on the existing pavement as well. And this is what the other site driveway would look like at Rainwater Court. Again, yellow is the new pavement, and we are installing a left turn lane into the site. And then the main intersection that I want to talk about is the intersection of Glen Laurel and Benson Road. And just to illustrate the improvements that are going on out here. So NCDOT, it is on their books, it is fully funded, it is supposed to be installed by the end of 2023. They do often delay, but a traffic signal is being installed at this intersection, Glen Laurel and Benson Road, by NCDOT. It will be operational before this project even breaks ground, may even be operational before this project gets approved, if it gets approved. But this development would be going in, again, these improvements would be installed before our first house is occupied. A very extensive left turn lane that is going to add a significant amount of capacity to that intersection, as well as a right turn lane. And these improvements, again, have been vetted by NCDOT and town staff. This TIA has been reviewed and approved, as Pam mentioned, by both NCDOT and the staff. And again, I do want to just really harp that this is a big improvement for the development. This is an off-site improvement, and this is a very long turn lane, 550 feet of 12-foot pavement. It's a very, very expensive improvement that this development is committed to providing before the first unit. And I do want to point out that these improvements were These improvements were based on that original density that we proposed. The TIA was based on that original density, and these improvements are based on that. The 550 feet was based on those original trip generation numbers, and the proposed development now, our current plan, we would be seeing an overall reduction of 10% of the trips generated by this development, but we are still committed to providing these improvements based on that. We aren't looking for a 10% reduction in the overall improvements. One thing I did want to point out at the site driveways, these are just conceptual drawings at the moment. Obviously, we wouldn't go through the full design until we are going through the site plan, and we're still working on the rezoning. But NCDOT will need to also review and approve all of these drawings and the design. I know at the last meeting, I had in my notes that someone was concerned about the site distance concerns along Vincent Road. And I just want to be very clear that that is something that NCDOT would not approve the driveway if the site distance was not adequate to their standards. So I just want to be very clear about that. I hope I touched on all of the points that were issues last time regarding traffic, but if you have any concerns or questions, I am happy to answer them.
Any questions from any planning board member? Board Member Spence.
All these changes at this intersection of Vincent and Glen Laurel, when's this going to take place?
So this, as I mentioned, these improvements, so the traffic signal is going to be installed by NCDOT. And these improvements at this intersection are, as our conditions state, are to be installed prior to our first plat, or first before the homes are built and occupied. This will take place.
Okay, well, I mean, I do know a signal has been designed for that, but it's just a two-phase signal, and there's no turn lanes or anything. It's just a two-phase existing roadway. I do know that's been done.
Yes, the current traffic signal. So when we do our, so NCDOT is installing just a traffic signal based on the current laneage out here. They understand that something is needed out here, and that is what they identified to put out here. We would have to update that traffic signal, so we would have to install protected phases for the left turn. We'd have to put the heads in for that. That's just standard. Whenever you are installing traffic lanes or turning lanes at an existing signal, you have to update the signal plan.
I'm aware of that too. I do work for DOT, so you probably came through my office. Talked to Zach Little. But anyway, okay. But I was just wondering because I went out there about 3 weeks ago and drove around 5 o'clock, 5:30, and traffic is terrible. It needs something before you add more traffic to this intersection. So that was what I was wanting to know. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you, appreciate it.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, the board. My name is Bill Harrell with Hopper Communities, Medway Drive, Raleigh. I'd like to thank the neighbors for coming out for the prior planning commission or board meeting, and also our 2 neighborhood meetings that we had, and voicing their concerns in this process. Our team has worked extremely hard to come up with a plan that all parties can live with, but I don't think that plan really exists, the perfect plan. We've addressed as many of the concerns as possible, and that's what we're presenting tonight. We need new housing desperately. People in existing homes do not want to sell because they don't want to take on an 8% interest rate, which that creates a need for new construction. It's no secret that nearby companies like Novo Nordisk, Grifols, and recently approved Project Life Dust that are close by are constantly expanding and adding jobs. All of these projects were approved by this board and the city council, which you all should be very proud of. Those new workers need somewhere to live in the immediate area to avoid long commutes. There simply is not enough local supply. The town of Clayton has clearly made a commitment to growth with the Sam's Branch wastewater plant at a cost of $250 million to increase wastewater capacity that is currently under construction. Clayton needs new homes and businesses to help pay for this capital improvement project. We are proposing to build a sanitary sewer lift station on the northeast, corner of our site. And we will be sizing the station, the lift station, and the 11,000 linear feet force main to accommodate the future development of the two parcels to the west along Benson Road. And most important for the town is the pump station and force main will be sized at our expense to eventually take the Glen Laurel 3 station offline, eliminating the ongoing maintenance issues associated with that station that the engineering department has noted to us, saving the town significant funds for the long term. The pump station will also have an odor control system, an issue that was raised by a concerned neighbor, so as to avoid the repeat of the station out on Highway 42 and the Neuse River. As Carolyn mentioned, road improvements are typically phased as development is completed. However, after hearing traffic concerns from the neighbors, we elected to go ahead and construct all of the traffic improvements prior to recording our first plat, long before any of the homes are built or adding any additional traffic to the road. Our improvements are not just limited to our frontage. We are to add significant additional improvements that Caroline just showed to the intersection at Benson Road and Glen Laurel Road. We have made a commitment to quality via zoning conditions with all elevated foundations. On the single-family homes, we prohibited vinyl siding, and homes must have a minimum of 25% masonry and stone on the front elevation. And we've set aside over 40% of the total site dedicated to open space, both active and passive. Since the last meeting, we've significantly revised our plans to a maximum of 2.7 dwelling units per acre and eliminated 116 townhomes from our original plan, with a total reduction of about 12% of the total units. We did elect to keep the townhomes as they are not allowed, or they are allowed under this zoning designation, and also to help fill the need for additional housing in the immediate area. We've thoughtfully and carefully put a plan before you tonight that meets and exceeds the 2045 comp plan for this area while addressing as many concerns as possible. We've indicated benefits for the town and raised the bar on quality that Clayton has not been accustomed to over the years. We appreciate your time and consideration of the project tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Does any member of the board have any questions for any member of the applicant staff? All right, thank you.
Let me walk up here again. I will. We'd be glad to address any concerns you have. We generally think this is good for the town of Clayton. It's better than it going for the county or for a municipality that has county utilities, county water and sewer, and does not offer the benefits that Clayton can offer as it grows into these growth areas, because it's a town of enough substance to offer those kind of services. And it takes that. We think that the plan we have fits well into the area. If you look at the area that's recently developed, which Pam has shown you those. I've tried to show you those on a map that doesn't do very well from this distance. But certainly that ties in with, for instance, the two that North Thompson built. Closer to 42 and just very close to our subdivision, and Tuscany is really almost adjacent to it across the river. So we taken to the concerns, delayed it for a month, and tried to reduce everything, tried to put the townhomes in the middle so that they're not immediately adjacent to someone. However, townhomes are permitted in your jurisdiction, okay? So it's a little arbitrary to say, well, we just don't like them out here. If they're well buffered and a good plan. Let me, can I approach y'all and hand you this so you can look at it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is the David Newton Reserve. Missing middle house.
Sir, could you just, okay. Right.
Today's News and Observer, one of them's on townhomes, it's been in the paper the last few days. And it's showing that townhomes outside of the town of Raleigh are becoming necessary because young people can't afford it. And they can afford the townhomes, and they can barely afford those. Some of them are going for 300 plus. So in any case, that's why we put some townhomes in there. They give us the funds to increase the value of the rest of the subdivision, which we think is well planned, is consistent with, as I said, the more recent subdivisions in that area, most of which are Tuscany. Thank you. If you've got any questions, any of our witnesses will be glad to address them. And as I said, we do think this is good for Clayton, and we do think people need to understand that a townhome is going for over $300,000. Okay, that a single-family residence over here is going to be going for over $350,000.
Sir, would you please address the board?
Okay, well, they'll be addressing I'll do as you say. But over $350,000. So you start getting a $250,000 mortgage at today's rate, you're looking at $1,700 at 30 years. At tomorrow's rate, because I think rates are going down, you're still going to be looking at $1,300 or something. It's substantial money, and it basically requires somebody to have a $100,000 income. So these properties are not 2000 or they're not 1982. And they need to have all the flexibility with the townhomes and with these very nice houses that'll be built, but not on acre lots. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions of the applicant? Thank you, sir. At our September meeting, we heard members of the planning board, had substantial comments from the members of the public. What is the will of the board of opening it up to the public for comments, for changes to the proposal only? Anybody? Okay. We will allow public comments only for changes to the proposal. We've heard substantial comments back in September. They will be for 3 minutes only. Back in September, I think we lost the quorum. So tonight, during the public comments, the staff will time the public comments at 3 minutes. Now, as the chair, tonight, we will not allow any clapping, jeering, or outbursts during the public comments. If it does occur, I will give you one warning only. On the second occurrence of any clapping, cheering, jeering, or outbursts, I will immediately end public comments. Hopefully everybody in the audience understood what I said. No clapping, no cheering, no jeering, no outbursts. If it does occur, I will give one warning only. The second occurrence, I will end public comments. Thank you. First speaker, please come to the microphone, give your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Nicole Hackler, and I live at 530 River Knoll Drive off Vincent Road. You'll have to forgive me. I'll need to cut my comments, but I will try to keep them within the limits that you just set. Before I speak, I would just like to provide my qualifications to establish my credibility as a qualified technical resource. I'm a licensed professional civil engineer in the state of North Carolina, and I'm currently employed as a transportation engineer with NCDOT. I also served on the Johnston County Planning Board for 12 years, the last year of which I was vice chair. I will note the following are my own comments and do not reflect the opinions of my employer. I'm here because I still have great concerns about the proposed development before you. My hope is that the town of Clayton will not approve the annexation and the property would remain under Johnston County's domain. That way, the developer would instead have to go before the Johnston County Planning Board, whose regulations, as we know, are much more strident than the town. So in fact, this land is presently zoned by Johnston County as agricultural residential, on which the county only allows a density of 1.45 dwelling units per acre. Now, what the developer is asking for here, even with his reduction of 32 units since last time, is still 2.78 dwelling units per acre. This is nearly double what Johnston County would currently allow on this property. So again, my first recommendation is that the town simply deny the annexation, and this would take the subsequent rezoning completely off the table, since the property would be outside of your jurisdiction. However, should the town decide to proceed with annexation, conditional rezoning comes into play. I feel like conditional rezoning is being requested because the developer wants density well above the surrounding land use, and we've seen that in their presentation. 2.78 acres is still well above the surrounding land use, but another point of concern for me is the fact that zoning seems to have already been determined if annexation is to occur. The zoning would likely be designated not as residential estates, but as low-density residential. Now, residential estates is the zoning that Johnston County has that is closest to the towns. Johnston County has as agricultural residential is closest to the towns, and the densities in this can range from 1.0 units per acre to a maximum density of 2.1 units per acre. So I'm concerned because the zoning seems to have already been determined should the annexation occur. I would feel better if I'm sorry, had to change my notes several times. I would feel much better if the town would rezone to residential estates instead of low-density residential. Low-density residential, which they're asking for, the developer, in and of itself is a misnomer, since this designation actually allows 3 units per acre.
Ma'am, your time is up. Thank you.
Bob Gustafson, 1209 News Ridge Drive. After the changes, I think it's feasible. My concerns are the town taking over the sewer and the water. And then are we going to get our taxes lowered from that development? The other concern is the intersection, Vincent Road. There's no turning lane now in that proposed thing. They got the turning lane turning left of Vincent, but coming out of Vincent, making the right on Glen Laurel, there's no turning lane. So what are they going to do about that? That's just my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Hey, how are you? I'm Brentwood, Clayton, 230 Summit Street. To me, it feels like they've built towards what you've asked them to do. Seems like they were meeting those needs. The Raleigh area is growing fast, as we all know that. If you've been around here, you know that. Really, the past 2 decades has been growing, and Clayton's growing and Johnson County's growing. If you've been here more than 20 years, you probably know at some point Vincent Road and out that whole area was nothing but rock. It was just Rocky Branch. That's what it was called. And so the development code, the Unified Development Code, it seems like we're working to get there. It seems like it's there. It seems like the others are fair. You've approved other items that are close to that and meeting those circumstances. I feel that if they're meeting the Unified Code, that's where it has to meet at the grind. That's to me is where it should be at, not if there's, I live behind Commons, right over here off of there. Trust me, when I tell you that there's a townhome in my front door, I'm at the end of that street where the fire road is off of there. Y'all are very gracious in having stuff built to help accommodate that, and I appreciate that as well. But I think basically the unified code is the way to justify that one way or the other. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Good evening, board members. Gary Ogle, 2101 Hidden Valley Drive. As you said, the DOT had already approved the road changes at Vinson and Glen Laurel. Those changes are still not going to be enough when you add 500 more cars every day into that area. Yes, they have made some changes to their plan, but I'm still concerned with the water runoff coming down behind my property and my neighbor's property. It still has the potential to flood my property with all the water running off from the pavement and concrete that this subdivision will have installed. And I take great offense to the 1982 remarks about the subdivision I live in being substandard or something. I think anyone here would be proud to own 3 acres of land. So I don't think that should be considered. Tuscany is on the other side of Neuse River. Those cars don't use Vinson Road or Glen Laurel Road. That's irrelevant to what's going on here. I ask the board members to please consider the traffic, the future of this area. I realize growth is happening. We can't stop that. I'm not trying to stop it. I love Clayton. It's prospered. It's doing great. I want to continue to see that. But your job is to see that it's done responsibly and under control. Yeah, housing's needed, but we don't have to provide it for the whole county in one piece of property. I drive 35 miles every day to my job. It's okay. People can do that. It's not a big deal, you know, that's okay. Once again, consider the people that already live there. Your job is to look out for your residents. Please do that and deny this rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is John Scarpa. I live right on Neuse Ridge Drive. The new proposal that they have come up with is they put lipstick on a pig.
Pardon me, Chair. We have the applicant, or I'm sorry, the presenter at least clarify the address of their.
Yes, sir. You didn't get the numerics of it.
1304 Neuse Ridge Drive, and please don't duck my time for that.
Oh, you're good.
They put lipstick on a pig. What they're not telling you, but which I know because I've attended every meeting now since I moved into the neighborhood, is that on the corner of Vinson Road and Glen Laurel, there's another proposal that is before the city council for another development. And nobody is saying what's going to happen if both are approved. So what they're doing is logically fallacious. And the way that I can say that is because if you had, let's say, 100 acres and you developed 10 acres and said, gee whiz, we have 93 acres, the board would be very well suited to saying, yeah, we should develop that 10 acres. But then the next developer comes along and says, well, we have these people over here, you let them develop their 10 acres. We want to develop our 10 acres. And soon all 100 acres are now developed. And that's inconsistent with the way I want to see Clayton develop. Responsibly, I think that growth is a great thing. But putting all of this traffic and all of these houses on Vincent Road will overburden the school system. And I know you don't have jurisdiction over the school system, but you know it exists. And you know how it affects the community. And that's got to be something that you take into consideration. So their revised proposal did nothing. And I would like to yield the remainder of my time to the lady who was making so much sense. I think we should be allowing her to have more time.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
Yes, good evening. My name is Donnie Black. I live at 325 Riverstone Drive, right off of Vincent. And I would like to thank the folks for their presentation. It was, as the gentleman so eloquently put, lipstick on a pig. It doesn't change the fact that what they're wanting to do is to introduce way too many people into this small area. It's called entropy. What we need to do, and what y'all need to do, is to take in consideration what your responsibility is to the town of Clayton. You want to annex a part of Johnston County to make it part of Clayton, but what's going to happen to the surrounding areas? Are you responsible for those areas, for the town of Clayton, and for the services? We have already touched on the number of issues with the traffic control. If applicable, okay. What is applicable? So I'm going to reiterate what the young lady came up here and ran out of time to say. Don't do this. Let Johnston County take care of Johnston County.
Thank you.
Jerry Dodson, 2105 Hidden Valley Drive, Clayton. Mr. Chairman, board members, appreciate y'all taking time to listen to our concerns. I want to go back and address one of the concerns. This is about the traffic on Glen Laurel. Glen Laurel's affected by all means, but on Vinson Road, it's a winding, curvy country road that has been in since before 1982. So that's the kind of road it is. So you can widen it here and there, that's okay, but it's still a country road. Anyhow, Mr. Spence talked about the traffic light earlier. Yes, there's one going in, but you know, sir, that a traffic light doesn't appear overnight. The data has to accumulate for, I don't know, at least a year or so, I would think. And all that traffic light means to me is that it is going to be put in to handle the current traffic flow there, not the extra traffic that's going to be coming down Vinson Road if this subdivision is planned the way they're wanting to do it. Now, I like the direction they're headed in with fewer density, lower density. I like that, but we're not there yet. Another concern I have is the drainage that Mr. Ogle talked about off of that property. We are on a private road that we maintain ourselves. Currently, we have on one of the streams that is between my property and, some others there, we're currently trying to control the erosion by working on that and getting busted concrete, anything we can to fill in the holes and where the erosion has occurred. If this subdivision goes in, it's just going to make it worse. And I'd like to address the housing itself. There's always a mention of affordable housing. And like they talked about tonight, even with the, forget the right term there, but the attached housing, that is completely lost my thought. This old gray hair here is, messing me up. But anyhow, the housing, we just don't need the $300,000 townhomes. If you want to do something for the town, for the county.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Please vote no on this.
Appreciate you folks for your time and your time that you spend doing this anyway. I got three concerns.
Sir, will you state your name and your address, please?
Joe Labo. I live at 110 Heath Green, right off of Vincent. I'm 5 houses off of Vincent. I've been under a water restriction for 4 years. I mentioned this at the last meeting. Your infrastructure in the town is breaking down. Every year they tell me they got a broken pipe, they got a broken pipe, they got a broken pipe. Now these folks were talking about a pumping station. What's a pumping station going to do if your infrastructure is bad? You put more demand on it, I'm not going to have any water. Just want to let you know. Second, you got a school between Glen Laurel and Windsor where this entrance to this development's going to go. Painting on the road and a couple of signs ain't going to hit it. You got to have a flashing yellow light both ways. You got to do some infrastructure there. You got elementary children in the middle of this whole deal. Nobody mentions that. That's unheard of. Third, if you've ever rode between Glen Laurel and Windsor, the road it's cracking up. There's 3 sets of cracks on the lanes. People are going over the yellow lines to avoid it and everything. I'm gonna tell you this: when the accident happened, I wish I would be the lawyer on that case.
Thank you, sir.
Michael White, 416 News Ridge in Glen Laurel. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I appreciate the work that the applicant did and all the improvements he did. However, the 6 closest neighborhoods are still part of Johnson County and all zoned agricultural residential. The closest current town zoning is residential estate, like the planning board stated, which is 2.1 units per acre, and that is with sewer. Schools, Clayton High School is still a capped school, meaning they don't have enough seats for next year, 2023, 2024. And I have a question for the board, and to make sure that you are aware, or are you aware, how does it affect the conflicts that Novo Nordisk and Grifols Therapeutics currently has with the town of Clayton on their wastewater discharge limits that have recently been placed? To address the need for housing, yes, we do need housing in Johnson County, but nobody has mentioned the subdivision going in on Cole Road, West Olive, US 70, not far from Grifols, the proposed subdivision at the corner of Vincent and Glen Laurel, O'Neill Street, and those are just the ones that I drove by within the last 2 days. From the Town of Clayton Code of Ordinances, conditional districts provide the opportunity for developments that do not fit easily into existing zoning districts, even when divided into component parts, and compatibility with neighboring properties such that it is in the public interest to create a new and novel zoning district to accommodate them. I am not in support of annexation of this property. It should remain as part of the county. If you decide to approve, then it should remain residential estate, similar to the closest current zoning, 2023, not 2025. Thank you.
Thank you.
Art Holder. I live at 16 Oakmont Court, Clayton. I served 12 years on Clayton Town Council. Clayton cannot expand if it doesn't annex. Clayton needs to continue to grow. We've got needs for restaurants and so forth. We've got people investing money in restaurants and strip malls that without people coming in, population growing, they will not realize the investment out of that. 50 years ago, Glen Laurel and Vincent Road were dirt roads. All houses on the roads had been in existence for many years. Most of the people here tonight were not around back then. And developers started developing Hidden Valley Windsor Green, Glen Laurel, and lay the other developments started along on Vincent Road. No one opposed those developments, and many of these people here bought homes in those developments. Be thankful for what you have. Do not try to keep others from enjoying the lifestyle similar to yours. And I hear a lot of that going on tonight. The planning board is the Town of Clayton Planning Board and not the Johnson County Planning Board. If the developer has answered all the questions that the Town Planning Board has put forth and comes under the Unified Development Code, then the planning department should recommend, and if the planning department is recommending approval of the development, then the development should be approved and go through. I urge you to keep in mind that Clayton cannot grow if it cannot annex areas that are in Johnson County. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Board, for allowing us all to speak tonight. I greatly appreciate it. My name is Beth Grader. I live at 2101 Hidden Valley Drive. I'm not sure if many of you know this, but there's a petition since the last meeting that was signed by over 500 residents in the area of Vincent and Glen Laurel that was turned over to the town council, asking them not to approve this. This affects all of us, 500 people. If you approve this 146-acre parcel, where does that leave everybody else? Leave this to Johnston County. That's where it belongs, not to the town of Clayton. Not so somebody can make a bunch of money. We like where we live. We like the size lots that we have. That's why we live where we live. I understand there's a housing need, but as the gentleman put it so eloquently before, don't move everybody into 146 acres. There's got to be some give and take. That's all we're asking, not for what they're proposing. Keep it at the 1.4 or put it at one house per acre. That's all we're asking. We're saying you can't develop the property, but don't annex it back into the town of Clayton and don't force all that back on us. That's not fair. We have a voice too. That's why we signed the petition, 500 people. And we will do it again and again and again. That's all we're saying. Consider us, not just the money.
Thank you. Well, thank you. What's the will of the board? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I'll be brief. We appreciate the comments of all the community members. I did just want to touch on a couple things that were said. You all are not voting on the annexation. That's come up a lot. The annexation is something the town council discusses, not the planning board. I'm not sure if the community members know that or don't know that, but there were a lot of comments about that. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody here just knew that. The closest zoning to our property on our side of Vincent Road is not RE, it's R10. Glen Laurel East, which is a skinny strip, is actually the closest. So RE sits on the other side of the R10 Glen Laurel East zoning. A lot of neighbors have said that they want larger lots. On the other side, there is a discussion of affordable housing. I'm not sure how we provide large lots and keep them affordable. There's road improvements and pump station upgrades that are tied to this project. Those things cannot be funded if we do large lots. Large lots are $1 million homes. Those are not affordable homes. We understand that there's larger lots around us. That was the development trend back in the late 80s, early 90s. That's not what's happening now. The density is needed to fund these things. If there's no density, those roadway improvements and the pump station upgrades just won't happen. They won't be able to be paid for. We do have stormwater ponds on our site. They're proposed, they're required by state law to capture and treat the stormwater. We've offered to go and meet with the folks that live in Hidden Valley to see these issues, and if there's anything we can do on our side to help rectify anything, we will do that. But we're not going to dump the water onto the adjacent lots. We can't. We're going to provide stormwater ponds to help address that. And somebody mentioned the other project on the corner of Glen Laurel and Vinson. That tracked after us, to my knowledge, so our TIA may not have reflected their numbers, but their TIA should have reflected our numbers. So what you see is a significant roadway improvement that we are proposing and providing as part of this at that intersection. It's a significant cost to this project. And we were not aware of a petition that was signed by neighbors. We'll get a copy of that to see if there are comments in that prior to going to town council, if there's anything we can do on our end to improve, we will do that. But this petition we just heard of tonight, but we will review that before we go to town council. And I just wanted to make those couple notes. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, thank you, everyone. I'll turn it over to the board for their consideration. Are there any comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman, my thoughts remain as they were at the last meeting. I feel like this is more of an agricultural, rural, residential, 2 units per acre density instead of the proposed 3 unit per acre density, low density residential. So my thoughts are still the same as the last meeting. So I don't know if anybody else has changed. I wish that, and I don't know if we can put something in our rules to say if we have this situation happen again, where we have somebody come in for a situation where they want to be brought into the town and brought into the ETJ, if there could be a determination made on the land use classification prior to, so we don't end up where you got a developer that spent over a year and a lot of resource, time, and effort to bring something before us that the board nor the council may not feel is the appropriate use. And I want to say to everybody out there, the council is who's going to make the final decision. So, these guys are going to be looking at, I think, very different than, or not very different, but different than we are, because I'm totally looking at number of units per acre. And if the developer would have brought back a plan that showed 2 units of density per acre and it was all single family residential, I would be voting to support that tonight. But the townhouses and overall density is the reason why I'm going to vote to deny personally. So,
Any other board member? Yeah, Board Member Applewhite.
Yeah, I think my colleague mentioned it well, that the town council makes the final decision. I think what I've been considering over the past few minutes is the opportunity cost of, if this project does not move forward, what is the next project that is going to probably come before the planning board or Johnson County's planning board in the future? What will that look like? Will it have the traffic improvements? Will it have a pump station that may amount to $500,000? Will it have the open space? Will they be accommodating to the density requests of the residents and of this board during the last meeting, or of myself? And I'm not convinced that will happen. So with the consideration of the changes that they made and the trajectory that is happening in this area, we need the mix of housing types. I'm a young guy, and I had to buy a not-so-starter home so that I could live in Clayton. And I know friends of mine, family of mine that are also in the same position. You can't afford these houses. And a $300,000 townhome is hardly affordable. But what does that look like for people that want to move here? And finally, with the road improvements, that will definitely not be done if outside of the traffic signal, and others can correct me if this is wrong, but it probably won't be done in the near future without a development going in this area. So what does that leave in the period that it could be 3, 5, 7 years until another development comes forward from the same property? Is it a neighborhood? Is it something different? If Johnson County decides to change their land development code, will they look at this property differently? I just think there's too much outstanding that could cause greater concern later on in the future if we don't allow folks that have been accommodating, whether they're not accommodating enough. I mean, that's up for folks' opinion. But if we continue to kick this can, will we get a better result in the end? And I'm not convinced that's the case. So with that, I'm in the boat of recommending to move forward to the town council for their final decision.
Yeah.
I am, I'm gonna tell you, I'm very torn on this one. And I can see it from both sides. I understand the people that are concerned with the traffic. Nothing's worse than traffic when you're going to work in the morning or anything else, and we all deal with it. We all live with it. Like some of you, I remember when that was Rocky Branch, and that was the community, and it was a dirt road in both directions, and my grandparents farmed that property in the 1930s. It's changed. But I agree with the gentleman that spoke that keep in mind, everybody in here lives in a house. They moved into a subdivision, they moved into somewhere. And very few people in this room are from Clayton. So everybody had to have a house at some point. And I'm always against the thought process that somebody buys a house, they're tickled to death with their subdivision. But the moment they buy a house and move in, they want to roll the streets up and no more. We got all the people we want here now. And that, or you want people to live here, you just don't want them to live on your street. And I understand that mentality. But at the same time, Clayton is growing. And if we vote to approve it or don't vote to approve it, it still is, as James and everybody said, it's up to the town council to make that final decision. But keep in mind, if we recommend not to approve, or we do, and the town recommends not to approve it, be careful what you wish for. Because from a developer standpoint, they've spent quite a bit of money already. I see the developments. Some of the things they're doing, they could probably get passed at some point in the future through the county without doing some of those things. And you don't get the turn lanes and the other stuff. And you can't have inexpensive housing in 1 acre lots. That's not the world we live in today. So just be careful what you ask for, because you might get it and you might not like what comes down the road in the future. With that, I'm telling you, I'm undecided. Somebody make a motion, I'll vote.
From the September meeting, I think the applicant did some of the things that we, some of the board members asked. I think that looking at Clayton as a whole and the type of housing and the density, and I think what we're looking for, the quality of the housing, I think it's what they're recommending, I think it's a good quality exterior of the housing. I think the lot sizes are a good quality lot size. And I agree with Board Member Applewhite. I support the project. I think the lot sizes are a decent size. We went through in my neighborhood, I'll be honest with you, my neighborhood went through the same thing. I live within the city limits of Clayton on a neighborhood of acre lots. And when a developer came in right next door, adjacent, putting in quarter acre, half acre lots, third acre lots, my neighbors fought tooth and nail. They didn't want that right next door. But we evolved and it's there now in the center, not a quarter mile from downtown, but we evolved. And I agree with Jody said, sometimes when you move in and you think that, well, the whole city needs to be 1 acre lots. If the whole city was 1 acre lots, I think this town of Clayton would be 3,000 people. And that wouldn't be realistic in today's society. So I think the developer, looking at the proposal, the exterior project, what they're presenting is a quality project. I think it will not diminish the value of the homes. I think the price per square of what they're presenting may cause values to increase when you look at the price per square footage of the housing that they may put in, if you look at comps. So I support the project. Any other board members with comments?
I think we'll have a unanimous vote.
No. So what is the will of the board? We have some recommended language from the planning staff.
Yeah, Chair Moore, if I may. So you've got 4 motions on your sheet. The first motion is approval consistent with the future land use map. Motion 2 is approval inconsistent with the future land use map. Motion 3 is denial consistent with the future land use map. And motion 4 is denial inconsistent with the future land use map.
So if the members of the board want to take an opportunity to review the 4 recommended consistency statements, I can entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a clarifying question for staff?
Yes, sir, Board Member Applewhite.
For inconsistency, we mentioned that staff found the project to be inconsistent because the first statement, because of the need to annex in, it's not a part of the city limits at the current moment. And then the fourth one not being compatible with surrounding or with the immediate adjacent properties. In the event that we put aside number 4 is, or excuse me, if we put aside number 1, considering that the annexation is not before this board, would we still need to find it or make our motion to be inconsistent because we can't make the determination that the project is going to be annexed in?
I think if you were to take my advice, it would be you can still make a motion to recommend approval for a project despite it being lacking in that theater of the future land use map right now, which the point was well made by the board that there is no current designation for that in the future land use map.
So the motion could be motion to approve, but it would be inconsistent with the future. Okay.
Correct. That would be motion 2 for clarity in that regard.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion.
Board Member Applewhite.
I motion to approve this rezoning request while the request is inconsistent with the future land use map and the adopted 2025 comprehensive growth plan, and that the development is located outside the town's planning jurisdiction, and the comprehensive growth plan and land use map. This action is reasonable and in the public interest, and the surrounding land uses approximate to the town's corporate limits are residential uses, and the request is compatible with the existing zoning and land uses in that area.
We have a motion by Board Member Applewhite. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Board Member Powers. All in favor, say aye.
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 I did.
Chair Moore, can we do a roll call on that vote, just for
Yes.
clarity?
Yes.
I'll start to the left here. Board Member Lipscomb? Board Member Powers?
Yes.
Chair Moore?
Yes.
Board Member Dupree? Board Member Williams? I'm sorry, Board Member Spence? and Board Member Applewhite. So I want to say that was
4-2.
4 votes in favor of the motion, and it passes, sir.
Yeah, motion passes. Next item on the agenda is new business. Is there any new business from staff?
Staff doesn't have any new business. We're anticipating a meeting for your December, your meeting date, and we'll forward you the agenda packets when those are available.
So it will definitely be a December meeting.
Yeah, let's see, what date is that, 20th? We have it for the 19th of December on the Tuesday.
Okay.
On Tuesday, December 19th is when we'll have that next meeting, so you can pencil that in.
Formal discussion. Do you have, is there anything from the planning director?
Well, I'd like to take this time to thank you for the opportunity to be your planning director. Been working closely with staff here to get everything rolled away. We've Town Council approved the Unified Development Ordinance last Monday, and we're anticipating that to have some future amendments going forward, but the effective date for that will be January 2nd of next year.
Can we keep it down, please? The board is still meeting. Thank you.
So that UDO will be effective on January 2nd. We'll be putting that on the website, getting some educational materials prepared, and we'll forward that to you as well. So you have that big, beautiful document that you all have recommended to the town council. We're excited to work with that. Just my overall impressions with Clayton in my first 4 weeks is that there is a lot of good work being done here. There's a lot of movement, a lot of momentum, a lot of change, and I think that we're doing our best to keep that going copacetic with council's vision as well, and the town's job. So I really respect your all's position in terms of making recommendations that sometimes may be a bit of you kind of get the best. How do you get the best of both worlds? I think you're all doing a great job, and I really appreciate your service. So thank you.
Thank you. In case some of you may not make the December board meeting, we do it then, but I just want you to know that the two most senior board members since I've been here has been Board Member Powers and Board Member Liscombe. Well, Board Member Liscombe's term is ending and he's not reapplying, and also Board Member Begley is not reapplying. But I just wanted to take this opportunity, in case you're not here in the December meeting, to anyway, I'll do it again in December, but I want to thank Board Member Powers for his service to the town of Clayton. I don't know how long, but how long have you been on the board?
15.
Okay, but I just want to thank you for your service, and we'll do it again, but I just want to thank in case somebody's not here. We appreciate it. If there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Motion to adjourn. We adjourn.